Well, so this, of course, is the LGS alternative cover.
Let me hold up the...
Yep, Steven has the...
Let's see, hopefully it's not too shiny.
It's very shiny. Very shiny.
Yeah, I know, right? There's not much I can do about that.
But, I mean, just... It's a beautiful cover. It's so pretty. Both of them are. Let's be completely honest. But they've really hit their stride, I think, with these alternate cover designs. They've got a great stable of artists working on them.
Yeah, what it stands out to me on this alternate cover too is just how bright it is. Most of them are so dark, but the background and the spine really stand out to me. Yeah, I think on the bookshelf it's going to be you'll be able to spot it pretty easily.
Yep. And if you didn't know already, The Wild Beyond the Witchlight features. It's sort of like the opposite of the Van Richten's Guide and the Strahd adventure and source books, in that we're not looking at the dark domains, we're looking at the domains of delight.
Yeah.
Right. So it's sort of like the opposite of that, which does imply a lighter weight, more. I wouldn't say festive, but just maybe a lighter, less grim kind of approach, and it really comes out in the body of the book, I believe.
Yeah, I definitely. You can definitely feel the change in tone from like the stream of darker adventures, even Baldur's Gate. Going to hell, right? There's definitely some darkness in there, and this is a different tone.
Yeah, Rime of the Frost Maiden, the frozen north, right? It's things have been pretty grim and gritty for a little while. It's nice to see, a little fun come back. Not that it wasn't fun, but.
Yeah. Hey, wait, flip it closed. Let's talk about that cover real quick. So what I really like about the cover, on the front you have the Displacer Beast, which is just an amazing animal, right? An amazing creature that's been around for a while, and it's nice to see it, featured prominently on the cover. And what I like about the weather vane on the back is that, goodness, am I still there? Am I there?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I just had a weird flicker on my page. So anyway, I just noticed that the weather vane looks a lot like a dragonfly.
Oh yeah.
Yes. I hadn't noticed that until I saw the back of the cover more clearly.
Well, and like I don't know if I can. Yeah, you can see sort of
little butterflies
into the background is this kind of this butterfly pattern.
Nice.
But yeah, this is one of my favorite covers. Like I think this is my favorite one since Tasha's Cauldron, to be honest. And I think that's pretty cool. And then, like literally as we were talking, we've got a little lizard frog guy just writing on a scroll sitting on a mushroom.
I believe he's on a toadstool.
No, that's an Amanita muscaria.
All right, but I'm going to call it a toadstool anyway.
So this is an adventure, but it does have a small chunk at the beginning that is dedicated to players, and I think this is some of the most interesting and useful content in the whole book, to be honest. You've got information about the Feywild, which is where the adventure takes place.
A good chunk of it, yeah.
Some Feywild trinkets,
Yes, there's some really good tips for DMs in there. So if you're a brand new DM and this is early in your DMing career, there's some really good stuff in there too, specific to this adventure. But just reading through it can help you with any adventure you're preparing. So
Right.
I do like the attention that they've paid to helping bring the dungeon master into the adventure and giving them some tools that they can use to be prepared as they roll into each section. And as you go into each section of the book, it has a little bit of information for the DMs too. So they're definitely paying attention to helping a dungeon master oversee the game.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great trend. And then like there's these little boxes right here that kind of add a little more flavor for the DM to kind of, these are things you might want to tease out while you're playing, like the numbers 8 and 3. There's significance to those numbers in the adventure, or making mistakes. That's actually, these are just general tips, I guess, like highlighted tips.
Yeah.
So background.
You were talking about the Feywild trinkets. Oh, sorry, but I interrupted you. You were bringing up the trinkets.
Yes. So huge, 100, 1 to 100. Yes, there are literally 100 trinkets here. That you can roll a d100 to randomize, or just pull it out as you see fit. So pretty standard stuff that leads off any adventure book. But we get into the backgrounds and the character content. So you've got Fey marks, Feywild visitor. Basically, just these are things that you can add as hooks for your players to kind of integrate them even more strongly with the adventure, or any adventure that you have that isn't this, right?
Absolutely. So their backgrounds, and they can be used outside of this. The first one is, I think, Feylost is what it's called. It's on the previous page is the title of the background.
Yes.
So that would be somebody that grew up in the Feywild, but didn't necessarily start out there. Maybe they were kidnapped, taken there, stumbled through a portal into the Feywild. Spent some time there, and then
think like the Goblin King and Labyrinth trying to steal Toby. Like if Toby had stayed, this would be his background. Right.
So it gives you, regardless of your race and your other, your attributes and so forth, it does give you some. It gives you a little bit of a fey tinge to what you're doing, a little bit of that fairy dust sprinkled into your background. So that's pretty good. And then the other one is it was specific to this adventure is a Witchlight hand. So that's somebody that has become a member of the Witchlight Carnival. But you certainly could use that as a background, elsewhere in another adventure in a different world. The Witchlight moves around from world to world after all. So.
Yeah. Basically, 2 of these are connections that are basically connected backgrounds that work specifically with this adventure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Races. So there are two, right? 2 new races.
Mm-hmm.
In this. One of them is naturally a fairy. And so I've been trying to get my wife to play D&D for a while, and one of the things that we always talked about when we talk about her rolling up a character is she wants to play a fairy. And handily, they have handed me what I need to make my wife's dreams come true. So again, these are kind of like the new style races that D&D 5th edition brought forward with Tasha's Cauldron. They're more about role playing than about being like really kind of differently powered or different different stats, that sort of thing. It's more about giving your character that flavor that it needs, that helps you roleplay better.
Yeah, it's a pretty light template that you're laying down there for your baseline. So, but yeah, I mean, it's fortuitous for both of us because my daughter was asking about playing D&D, and I said, "What do you want to be?" And she immediately said, "A fairy." And I was like,
"Yep,
I'm gonna have to create a fairy race." And then this fell in my lap, and I'm like, "Never mind, I'm gonna use this." So.
Yep. And then the hair engine is that how it's hair?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe hair engine. Hair and gone. I don't know.
That's probably hair and gone.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, but
yes. But yeah, these are rabbit people.
Yeah, pretty cool. I like it.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny because like we're starting to see more kind of anthropomorphized animal people in this edition than we have in previous editions with like the turtle and now the heron.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the Heron just fits right in because there's a couple other nods to Alice in Wonderland in this adventure anyway. Yes, so nice. I mean, this is perfectly the White Rabbit. So
yep. And then some character traits that are Feywild kind of flavored. So yeah, like I said, not like a huge chunk of character content, but what's there really is pretty strong.
Yeah, definitely. You definitely can take this, and I mean, if you're starting out an adventure, your characters, your whole adventure could be based on people that are all Witchlight Carnival, Witchlight hands, and they're all fairies and herringons, and you could have a whole party made up of that, and it would be awesome. Or you can drag in your barbarian and your I don't know, Warforged if you want to, you know, right. and it'd still work out just fine. So
yep. So yeah, that's just a handful of pages. The rest, this is all adventure.
Almost all adventure.
Well, yes, there are creatures.
The appendix at the back, but yeah.
I don't want to get into spoilers. Too many spoilers, but I think there are a few things that we can talk about.
Yeah, I think so. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry.
No, please.
Well, I was just thinking that one of the things about the adventure is that the opening setting is the Witchlight Carnival.
Yes.
And I think that it's really nice to have the Witchlight Carnival as the setting. It's pretty interesting the way that they've set it up with the way that there are some specific encounters to be expected, but then there are some that are not. And there are maps in there. There's a map of the carnival, one for the player and one for the dungeon master. So and just some wonderful art just all throughout the book. There's just so much really cool art.
Yes.
So yeah, really good stuff.
There we go. Yeah. Yes. So this is the Witchlight Carnival is pretty much what they use to tease the world with for this book. It is not the entire book. It's literally just the first chapter.
Yes, exactly.
So there's a lot more going on. I think it's a great whimsical way to kind of set the tone for the adventure. I mean, a carnival. You can play it a little more sinister, or you can play it a little more lightweight. There's always going to be kind of like a little undercurrent of like, you know, something's not right, because that's the whole concept behind the Magic Carnival. Like, you know, you can make it. I mean, one of my favorite movies of all time, and that kind of has this trope, is of course Something with This Way Cones.
Yeah, that's true.
and yes, the comparison was brought out right away when they were talking about it. But yeah, it's, I don't know. What did you think of the Witchlight Carnival?
I thought it was great. I liked the setting. I liked what they did with it. I had some ideas for, there's some additional stuff. So one of the things I really liked about so they've set it up with, here's a couple of key things that kind of the characters will definitely have to encounter, right? Like the ticket booth coming in kind of thing. And then here's all the other stuff that they may encounter. And just reading through all of the different things that they can, I thought of some.
Steven, you there? Looks like we got another hiccup on Steven's side. Yeah. Hold on. Hey, there he is. Welcome back, Steven. Oh, man. All right. Well, we'll be back shortly. We're going to try to sort this out. Is that him coming along? Yeah, we'll be right back. We are back.
Hello, I don't know. It's my wonky computer. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah. No, it's all right. Yeah. So, we were talking about Witchlight Carnival. I believe you were talking about the Witchlight Carnival.
I probably had summed up my point, though. So it's all good.
Okay. So yeah, we don't want to dig too deep into this. I know the masterminds behind what's going on in this adventure are very near and dear to Steven's heart in terms of like what kind of creature they are. Kind of something he's been talking about for a few years.
Yeah, this is that. I think that one of the highlights of this adventure for me, all the way through it, is just the way that they've laid it out for the players to get through it with just using their heads, right? Using their cunning, right? You can pull out your sword and just smash your way through it, but
non-combat
that's probably not going to be nearly as that's probably going to not be as nearly as much fun as non-combat. This definitely leans into the role playing, I think.
Right. Yeah, I liked that a lot about it. So there was one thing that has been announced that we can talk about, and that is, and I realize I'm going to kind of skip ahead a bit, but I really like these guys, the League of Malevolence. Especially this guy. So if you have been into D&D since you were a kid, like Steven and I have, there's a good chance you saw some D&D toys back in the early 80s. They weren't as superposable as like G.I. Joes. We were kind of...
They didn't have swivel arm battle grip.
No swivel arm battle grip, but they were super cool. Some of them were really, really cool. And I one of my favorites in particular was Warduke. He was this like evil fighter. So all of these guys are in this adventure. And your players will invariably encounter them. And their counterparts in Valor's Call, which are the good guy characters from the old D&D kids lore. I think some of them even appeared in the cartoon, in the 80s cartoon. I seem to recall Warduke being on it at least.
He's in the cartoon in my memory, so that doesn't mean that I haven't meshed it all together though.
But I remember I had some of these figures. I had this guy, Ringle Run. I had Warduke. And then, of course, the Strongheart, the Paladin. And I think he could ride either the Bronze Dragon toy or the Destrier horse. Anyway, I think they always ended up fighting the He-Man toys at my friend's house. So...
that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and they had the big ones too, like the Titan and the Frost Giant. Those were cool.
I don't remember those.
Anyway, so I thought that was really cool. They really are kind of reaching back into the past and kind of freshening up some of these ideas and characters from earlier versions of D&D. And they've been doing a great job of it so far, and they're really, really leaning hard into it now.
I think so. I think another thing that they've done that really stood out to me on the reading through this book is tying it into other publications and other books in a way that we're used to it and seeing it in setting books and publications that are tied to a specific setting. So when you go to Faerun, and if you're reading about that, Elminster's going to pop up. There's going to be references to different cities and towns and things like that, and characters and gods from settings that they're in. But in this adventure, which is setting agnostic other than being in the Feywild, right? But there's references in here to the multiverse, and there's references in here to other publications that are also sort of setting agnostic. I say sort of because it is set in the D&D multiverse. It's set in the the D&D planar universe, where if you go to the Feywild, you're on one of the planes in the multiverse, but you're not in the... Do we still use the term prime material plane? But right. Faerun or Greyhawk or whatever. Greyhawk, but you're not in one of those places. You're on one of the planes. But I think that's really interesting, and that leans also into what we were talking about earlier about possibly seeing the planescape show up, right? Like the city of Sigil or something like that. There's a lot to be done in the planes, and that wasn't so heavily explored in previous editions, right?
Well, and they've been hinting at this for a while, right? They've been kind of blurring the lines between the different settings that they publish. the title of the next book that is going to come out after Beyond the Witchlight is Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. Fizban, of course, being a character from Dragonlance.
Right.
You know, I think it's it's weird. It seems like there's this convergence of thought around a lot of genre media these days, especially with like Marvel. You know, it's multiverse. Everybody's doing something with a multiverse, and in parallel worlds, parallel universes, parallel settings. I think that's what we're going to see when they introduce Planescape. Is they're going to facilitate a way to traverse settings.
Yeah.
Canonically and in the rules, right?
Well, they've done that with this in this book already, right? Because the Witchlight travels from place to place. So you could, if you team up with the Witchlight Carnival, you could go from Greyhawk to Faerun to
right
wherever, and to your own homebrew campaign, and there you go. You're moving around there. So.
With this book, we've gone from breadcrumbs to like a half a slice of bread, right? It's it's getting pretty obvious where this is going, and I love it.
Yeah, I do
great.
too. One of the things that was just ingrained into my brain from early on, when we started playing, Red Book D&D and moving forward from there, is that when you go to the outer planes, when you go to the planes, outer planes, the ones that are more hospitable, you still need to be super high level, right? Because that's where the really dangerous stuff is, and just being able to get there, you had to be able to, rip open the borders of reality and step through to another plane or whatever. But then at the same time, it's presented as these are places where people grow up and live whole lives, right? So there are non-high level NPCs that live out there. There are towns and villages and places like that, and they're not all 20th level from birth. So there's kind of been this like dichotomy that if you're going to go there, like not everything there is actually the ultimate high level. And I do like this because I feel like they're stepping into it differently. Yeah. That they're introducing you to people that are on other planes but are third level, second level, first level, or just zero level regular old people. So
yeah, if I recall the first time they really sketched that out back in the original D&D, I guess before second edition even, was in Deities and Demigods with that diagram of the planes.
Yeah.
And
the Great Wheel.
Yeah, and yeah, you're right. Like it was like, man, this is really cool, but we need to be that high level to even survive. It just seemed like a nightmare to deal with. It was more fun to read than it was to think about facilitating play, right? And and I think the whole psionics system back in the day was very similar. It was like, why would you do this instead of spells? It's like magic but hamstrung, and it was weird, right? It didn't really map too well. But I like they have been introducing psionics into 5th edition, and they've done it in a really intelligent way, and it stands to reason that they're going to introduce multiplanarism. Whoa. Into 5th edition in an equally creative and compelling way.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that this adventure is definitely a step in the right direction for that.
So, let's talk about. I think we've talked about a lot of pros about the book. Did you come up with anything on your end about like cons, like things that you're kind of disappointed in or wish was in the book?
No, it's kind of embarrassing. So I have to admit, no. And there's definitely going to be some. I think that maybe something might stand out on a playthrough, but on a read through and studying through it, everything stood out to me. I really like the way it was laid out. We haven't talked about it, and this is not a con, this is an additional pro, but a little bit past the monsters and everything at the very back of the book, they've even included a tracker for the DM to keep track of stuff, which we all do that as DMs anyway, but there's that right there is some role-playing notes so that you can just flip through if you can't remember a personality or something like that, you can just read through that. There's some lines for you so you don't have to just make crap up, because sometimes that's really hard. And there's a story tracker, and so interesting stuff. It's just so I'm pretty happy with what we've got there available for us. And just I was amazed, and I think I was sending you screenshots of the book as I was reading through it and pointing at like, ooh, look at this, ooh, look at that. So I'm pretty happy with it. Maybe there could have I wish that there was a little bit more. Okay, there you go. I wish there was a little bit more on the carnival, like a few more things that they could run into. But at the same time, I was wondering about the amount of time that's available or that you want to spend wandering around in a carnival before you get onto the meatier parts of the adventure, because the entire adventure doesn't necessarily take place in just the Witchlight Carnival.
Right. So like, I really think that you could take each chapter and just expand it out as you see fit. Like, there's so many jumping off points and so many ideas that I got that kind of just went outside of the story. I think this book is going to be rich, like a rich vein of ore for folks who like to post supplemental content on the Dungeon Masters Guild. Yeah, absolutely. So what about you? I think there's quite a few supplements up there that tie into this already that they had to have been working on with Wizards of the Coast and the D&D team.
There's a supplement mentioned in this book. They're like, check out this supplement on the DM's Guild. It's in the book. So definitely, and there's some references to characters and story hooks that are in other things as well. I think it's great. So for me, the way that I dungeon master and the way that I run my adventures, I love just little seeds and little hooks. Like, you just, one little thing for me that I can throw out there. And I don't mind just the whole time that we're playing, just throwing this out and that out and this out. And then when the PCs grab something that it interests them, then we can just run in that direction. Yeah. And this is just full of that. So.
Yeah. Like I think the last book that I ran was Tomb of Annihilation, and I remember getting bogged down in the jungle leading towards the city that has the tomb, and I remember just being like, I gotta get them there, I gotta get them leveled up, I gotta get them down there, I gotta get them powerful enough. And it was like I was trying to make it appear to not be on rails, but like, you're guiding them through a jungle. There's so many different directions you could go. And with this, it's like all of it is so compelling. Like, you're not trying to rush to get to one place when you're just reading it, right? It's it flows pretty naturally. And also the hooks that they've got at the beginning, there's two different basic ways that you can reel the characters into the adventure, and they aren't crazy, and they're not too railroady either. You're like, well, here's this or here's this. I mean, everybody has to accept we're going to go on. You're in a pub.
Yeah, exactly.
Tavern, right?
I mean, you're your players have to agree to play, right? And so that is kind of like the conceit. We're all going to get together and play. I have been at the occasional frustrating table where someone actually is actively opposed to trying to, like, well, I'm not going to go do that. It's like, why are you at this table? So, but this definitely helps to frame the narrative and drive the players into the story, and it starts right away. It's really nice.
Yeah.
So, the campaign is for level 1 characters, the adventure is level 1 characters, so you don't even have to worry about leveling people up right away. I think it's 1st through 8. I can't remember what you're supposed to hit, but a lot of this stuff it's not really necessarily level dependent, except for skill checks. Like the higher level you are, the better you're going to do on skill checks. Some of the skill checks are pretty, like if you fail all your skill checks, then it can make things less fun.
Yeah, that was another thing too. Like it actually, because it provides non-combat adventuring. Like it really allows for that. It encourages you to use milestones as a leveling up mechanism for your players, which I have to admit, when I originally got into 5th edition, I heard about milestones, I was pretty skeptical, but like back in the old days when everybody's experience points wasn't like the same progression, right?
Yeah.
When everybody had their own progression, every class had their own progression table and their own milestones to hit in terms of experience points. Once you take that away, it's like, well, why not? Why not do milestones, right? It seems tidier.
I agree, and yeah, I think the milestones works really well.
More and more over the years.
I am too. I've experimented with both. I like the milestone thing because you can just, especially if you have a clear structure where you build up to something and they defeat a big bad, and you get almost to an episodic TV series kind of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, little bad, big bad, and you're done. Then you can go, well, everybody gets a level now, and then that works out really well. So in a less framed environment, then maybe milestones might not work so clearly, like, and you can lean into experience from more of the technical side of things. Well, you killed these 7 monsters. Like, you're not getting experience for gold anymore, so it's not worth it anyway.
That's right.
Yeah, you used to get experience points for gold.
I forgot about that.
You found 1,000 gold pieces. Woohoo! Got a level.
Yeah, it's... Oh, man, you totally, like, shook what I was going to say out of my head.
Sorry.
No, it really kind of... Oh, yeah, I know what I was going to say. I've done both in, like, a single campaign. Like, where I've been like, okay, I need them to get to another level, and they just had a big bad, so I'm going to figure out how many experience that will get them to the point that I want to, and I'll give them that amount of experience points instead of like using the standard method of calculating experience.
Right, it's basically making it a milestone by just dropping the points on them. Yeah,
right.
I think that works. So.
And so that way when they've done some like non-combat things that I thought were worthy of progression, I haven't had to kind of wrestle with it too much. So, but I'm thinking the next adventure I do, I'm just going to go milestones right out the gate. It's great.
Yeah, I think that
Why add to the work, man? I mean, boom! You are level 2, all of you.
Done. Yeah, that's true. So
get out of my face and memorize some spells.
Did you have any critique on the book? On the is there anything that you wish for more of? Or?
Honestly, probably the only thing that I could even really think of is how badly I wanted there to be a Feywild source book that accompanied this. Like something that like really blew it wide open, kind of like Van Richten's guide did for the Dark Domains. It seems a bit of a tease into like a much bigger world of possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally understand what you're talking about. That's what one of my favorite books from previous editions was the Manual of the Planes.
Yeah.
And while to read and to think about and to provide inspiration, very rarely had any adventurers actually make it to the outer planes. But one of the things that always prevented it was the fact that what I had was 2 pages that described an entire plane. And right. So there's so much left for you, the DM, to make up, right? And while I like a large playing field and a big blank canvas, that was my homebrew campaign. Right. And developing an entire secondary campaign world for them to go to was something that always like intimidated me and just made me not want to do it. But with the information and what was given in Baldur's Gate, what's the second half of that title? Descent into Avernus, right?
Right.
There's a lot of information about Avernus in there that then I was, quite happy to see. And there's some good information about the Feywild in this, but more would have been nice. I agree.
Right. So no, I can't really think of any. Like, I really, really liked this book. I really liked it a lot. I definitely think it's my favorite book to come out that they've put out since Tasha's Cauldron. And I think it's, even though it's an adventure and not a source book or a rules book, I think it's going to kind of have a similar impact on the breadth of what D&D 5th edition is doing going forward. And like, I feel like Tasha's Cauldron kind of set things up, and this is like kicking the ball a little further down, and I think we're gonna see some really cool stuff in the next year.
Yeah, I agree. I think so. I think that the way that they've been doing these hardback adventure books is they've, even from the very beginning, I was like, oh, I like the way that they're doing this because it does provide you with information that you can use outside of the adventure, right? There's additional monsters and so forth, which has kind of always been the case, but even more so with these, because in the previous editions, especially when you had the old style softback, just floppy, 30-page adventure with the map that came off the back, those were useful and had a little bit of information that you could use in other things, but maybe not so much as what comes in a whole book, right? And these hardback books, and that kind of helps justify the price too, because you're buying an adventure, and I mean, if you've bought them all, which I have, you're not necessarily going to have the time to play them all, right? And you too, yeah, I mean, like many of us have actually, but not playing all of these adventures doesn't necessarily mean you've wasted your money. There's so much other information in here that you can use, even if it's just unplugging a character, an NPC, and sticking them in, change their name and plug them into your world, and you're good to go. I mean, just some really great stuff in there. So, and this book,
I should note that for those of you on the stream, the music that is playing in the background is from Sirenscape's Wild Beyond the Witchlight soundboards. So I thought that would be a nice touch. Um, yeah, and I think they've been using these adventure books as a way to kind of test the waters. Is there enough appetite out there for a source book that really deep dives into the setting and the adjacent areas of where this adventure takes place? I think the answer is yes, and I think probably they're working on it now, and probably in about 2 years we're going to see a source book that is associated with this, whether it's Feywild or the Domains of Delight. Unless they roll it in with what they're doing with the planes.
Yeah.
So yeah, we both liked it. Steven, what score would you give this on our rating system?
Yeah, so I've been puzzling through that quite a bit. I'm super impressed with it. I want to get it to the table and see how it plays through. I'd like to get some feedback from some players on it, but I'm definitely going to give this, I'm going to give it a 90. It's a solid book. I really like it. The main things that I talked about, that I was like, I wish I would have seen more of, was just things that I wanted to see more of. And that's the main thing. Like, right. The only thing that I found wrong with this book was that it's just not thick enough, which is kind of sad. Yeah. But true. It's a really good book.
It's not thin.
It's not.
It's not at all. Yeah. And to your point, I do believe Kay, our one of our tabletop editors, is who is running a 10-part stream called Godplane Tuesday nights. She is fun. Already starting to incorporate ideas from this. This book is way in her wheelhouse, and she's been chomping at the bit. In fact, I believe she came up with a few of the ideas that ended up in this book. Like, it's not like she told them, she just came up with them on her own. Right, I think that happens with a lot of DMs.
Yeah.
But it's nice to get that validation, right?
Right. Yeah.
Also, it's cool because then you can go a little shorthand with it with your players, because they're like, oh, we've heard about this shit before.
Yeah, right.
But, yeah, no, I actually would give this a 95.
All right. Yeah.
I think it's, you're right. Like, the only thing wrong with it is that I wanted more, and I don't think that's anything wrong, really. That just kind of shows you how good it is. I was even tempted to just flat out give it a 100, but I don't think I could do that without playing through it first.
Yeah, that's my concern. I would like to. We just haven't had a chance to run a multi-day campaign or gaming session.
Right. But I mean, obviously we can't do that with every huge volume. Like, we'd have to have like several campaigns going simultaneously to even come close, and our review would probably be like a year or two after it came out. Right. So we try to kind of look at these as books, right? And I mean, as a book, it's, even if I never use this adventure as it's written, it is inspiring and motivating to me as a DM in ways that some of their other releases haven't been.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's I don't know what the word is, but definitely speaks well of the book, that while reading through it, my brain is going along the path that they're taking me down and then tumbling off in different directions, and I'm getting ideas as I'm reading and going, oh, that's great, and this could happen too, right? So when my own brain's doing that while I'm reading, that's wonderful. So.
Yeah. So we're at 90, 95. What should we? I say we give it a 95.
Okay. Yeah. I'll jump in.
The reason why I'm saying that is because the way you described it sounds like a 95 to me.
Yeah.
Because I think we're in total agreement about the book in every other way. It's just that one little difference of 5 points. And Okay. So
Okay, I'm all for that.
that's Wild Beyond the Witchlight. It is out in stores.